Thank you so much for coming on board the Transatlantic. I mean, it's like, I couldn't ask you for a better guest. You are a superstar. You don't need an introduction. And I'm really, really thankful.
Well, thank you for having me. And you've already had some good guests, so I'm glad to be aboard your ship.
So as you know, at Transatlantic, we believe that each of us is an ocean of erratic thoughts, wild feeling, crazy emotions. And so the goal is like to cross someone's ocean. In this case, we're going to cross your ocean, and hopefully I can try to expose some of your like more inspirational stories and like, uncover the journey of like your amazing career. So I'm going to ask you 7 questions, like the 7 seas, and eventually we're going to cross your ocean and have a beautiful journey. Okay, are we ready?
I'm excited about it. Let's do it.
Okay, man. Okay, first question. Darkness in the middle of the ocean is very, very thick, pitch black. You can't cut it, not even with the sharpest knife. It's up to your sense of imagination, to your skills, to your orientation to find a way through. Now, it very much resembles what happened in the mind of a creative. Yeah. Before like a brief land on your desk, you had to start thinking, and it's pitch black. You had to imagine, you had to rely on your sense of imagination and on your skills. Now, my question for you is this, and this is really like, makes me happy as a question. How one of the best creative in the States find a way to an idea?
First of all, thank you for saying that. It's a really good metaphor because I've actually thought of that before. Like when you're thrown a brief or thrown into a project, you are like in the middle of the ocean. You're kind of just swimming around trying to feel your way. I always start with like, what are we trying to say? What is the problem we're trying to solve? I kind of look at a brief as like, that's that life raft you kind of grab out in the middle of the ocean and you start pulling the string towards towards you a little bit, land on the place. So a really good brief is your best friend, a good strategist. Because to me, 99% of the task is finding what's the problem we're trying to solve, and then it becomes like, what are we trying to say? And then you spend a little bit of time on what's the most interesting way of saying that, and you just come at it from a million different angles. But honestly, I think most people jump to the interesting way of saying it before they do their homework on really investigating the problem. It becomes a lot easier when you have something interesting to say.
I love the notion of the brief being your best friend. I think I'm a big fan of this notion, of this statement. And I hope that's like young creative back in Europe and in Italy can actually make like, kind of like protect this statement, because it's so important. You are like so on point with this, with the brief being like the best friend.
It's like back to your swimming in the ocean kind of thing. I always like, when I get lost, I always just like start staring at the brief and dissecting every line, because there might be something in there that just leads to something else. And it's also easier to shepherd that work through if you can always point it back to the brief and how this is solving the problem, no matter how wild the idea is.
Great start. Second question. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is a novel by French writer Jules Verne. Now, in the novel, ships of various nationalities sees like mysterious sea monster, scary stuff. Fiction always carries an element of truth. The ocean is not a place for the faint of heart. It's a very fragmenting place. Same things could be said about creative land. It's very fragmenting, could be terrified. We creatives see so many monsters throughout our career. Now, the most common one, the monster that everybody talk about, is the one that come at night and steal your talent. I've heard a lot of creatives saying, oh my God, what if I wake up in the morning and I don't have the talent anymore? So what is your monster, Greg?
That one has never haunted me until you mention it now. I will.
Oh,
Honestly, I haven't had issue with that just because I know through experience that I will always come up with something. Like every time I get an assignment again, dating back to when I was a junior, it's like, this is gonna be the time when you know, when they find out I don't know what I'm doing. But after doing that a while, you always realize you're gonna come up with something. And the way to get over that is just put your worst idea on paper so you can always come back to it. Then just start beating it. Then once you know, like you got a safe one, now you can go wild. So but to answer your question about my monster, so the question is like basically what are my fears?
Yes. What is like, do you have a fear? Do you have something that's you're afraid of? Like, in the creative, like for instance, like I truly have the fear of like, I hope I have a talent, and the only talent I have the fear of losing it. And maybe one day I wake up and I don't have it anymore, and I can't feed my family anymore. I can't like.
Yeah. No, I don't feel that. I think I'm sure it's the same with you. If after you've been doing it a while, you know that feeling goes away. For me, it's more about the stuff that's out of my control. Like
Okay.
I feel like that's in my control, so that's up to me. But it's when certain circumstances come up and you get passionate about a piece of work, but something happens to it. That has always happened to me. It's from when I was a junior, and I remember where this started too, because I had like this amazing campaign that was gone through all the clients, and then like something came up, and I don't remember what it was, but wiped it all away. And as a junior, it's like your first thing. It was going to make you famous and all this kind of stuff. So every time after that, I was like, okay, what's the random thing that's going to kill it?
Yeah. Okay, that's awesome, man. Look, third question. Great, man. Like we are crossing the ocean. I already love it. The Atlantic is the last resting place of the Titanic. Why everybody knows, right? Like the Titanic sank on April 14th, 1912. It was a splendid effort of human engineering. It was a combination of dreams, ambition, skills, everything. Yet you all disappear at the bottom of the ocean. You, Greg, are the mind of some of the best. And I'm not here like really like to celebrate you, but gosh, man, you are the mind behind one of the best work ever done in the industry in the last decades. But I do believe that there must be a Titanic, a massive idea that you loved so much and it disappeared under the ocean. Do you recall one?
There's so many, and you know what? For me, I just have to move on because I keep dwelling. I've blocked all of them out of my memory because if I keep dwelling on it, what will happen too is like you'll fall in love with this idea and then you'll try to make it work for a million other things and it just won't. Sometimes you just gotta let go, and there's sort of freedom in just letting go of stuff. So I don't, I have a lot of them throughout my career, but I try not to dwell on it.
That's awesome.
One thing that helped me is to know that it happens to everyone. I used to think I was first at one point in my career when I was trying to break through. It's like, oh, no, I can't sell anything. Nothing ever happens. But that goes away, and there's comfort knowing that for every great thing you see out there, there's probably 20 maybe better things that got killed along the way.
That's awesome. It actually made me feel like more comfortable because this is the first time we met, but like I've known you, like your work, I've admired your work for such a long time. And I remember like growing up in Italy, when your name started coming up, like in the Minneapolis days, like, when you were working at Fallon, like everybody was like, always like looking at your work. So it's like, it's very interesting to me trying to get into the mind of a creative like yours, trying to like truly like, uncover every single like aspect of it.
I like being examined. It's therapy for me today.
4 questions. Italian physicist and radio pioneer Guglielmo Marconi succeeded in sending the first radio transmission signal across the Atlantic and disproved the detractors that thought that he couldn't send a signal more than 200 miles. He actually did send it, and he traveled 2,000 miles. If you were to send a signal across the Atlantic right now to a young creative that tomorrow morning is going to walk into the advertising industry, what would that signal be?
This has sort of helped me throughout my career emotionally is, and David Lubar's actually told me this, I never forgot. It's like, don't let the highs get you too high or the lows get you too low.
Wonderful.
Yeah, because it's a long game and you'll ride it out. And like I said, the stuff that happens to you, that's just part of the career, happens to everybody. When you first come in, the biggest shock is dealing with the fact that you know, you have clients to answer to. When you're a student, you are the client. You get to do kind of whatever you want, but there's a lot of hoops a piece of work has to go through in order to make it out into the world. And that can be frustrating, but you know, it's part of the challenge. And when it happens, it's all that more rewarding, you know.
That's a great answer and a great signal. And I wish I could like wake Bjorn Morconi up and tell him like to send this signal across the Atlantic. I'll do it myself, man. Okay.
I've learned so much during this podcast. I've learned about radio waves, Titanics, and
fifth question, man. An international team of ecologists predicted an apocalypse date, and it's 2048. That's when the ocean will be completely empty. There's not going to be anything. The cause of the disappearance of the species is due to the overfishing, to the pollution, and to the habitat loss. Now, indulge me in this analogy. It's more or less what's happening in the advertising industry, right? Our pollution is the thing that we are all going through. We are overfishing. The consumer is like under a lot of pressure, and we lost our habitats. During the global pandemic, we even lost the office. Do you think that advertising comes with an apocalyptic date?
No, I think it will always change. The form of advertising will change. It's remarkably resilient if you think about all the errors that has gone through. But, you know, I'm sure when TV came out, everyone thought advertising was dead, and then that became the thing. And then when the internet came out for years, and they still say it, that, you know, advertising's dead or TV's dead. It just transforms. I think what will happen is consumers will find ways to avoid it. So I think it's on us to not be so annoying and to respect people's attention more than we do. You know, you have to earn it rather than force it. So I think, you know, like every evolution, it will come back in a stronger, more interesting form. And the weak will die. You know?
Right. Sixth question, man. We are almost there. Like Sebastian said, the human world is a mess. So why not try living underwater? It must be beautiful. Now, I like this like thinking, because what it does, it reverses everything. It turns convention on its head.
Yep.
Now, if we were to adopt the same line of thinking in the world of advertising, which we know is a mess, what should we try that hasn't been tried before?
Oh man, this is like the era of that. There's so much room for reinvention, people open for it. I mean, for me personally, I was in a massive agency for 15 years, and, you know, in that system, and I did not think that I would ever like start something or be, you know, involved in something entrepreneurial. Now that I am, it's a whole different world, and it's like suddenly the wind is behind me, and not, you know, I think the forces are kind of going against the big agency model. So I think that whole thing's going to have to, holding companies, I think, are going to have to reinvent themselves or reshape or reform, or they'll simply not exist in a few years.
And I had to say about your career, when the news broke, that's like, you know, you were starting like Mischief, like USA and No Fixed Address. I totally admired that, because it showed like a great like, you know, resilience, but also like, it's so great to see a legend like yours, like to reinvent itself and like to continue the journey. And it's truly like, to me, it's like you say two things: persistence, resilience, and never quit. And I remember like your sentence the title when it came out, like it was like, don't dwell on it, to just move forwards.
Yeah.
And like, you know, that's why I wanted to have you on Transatlantic, because this is so inspiring to every single creative out there. As you say, like, you know, creatives, they're gonna go into like low and high, but
Yeah.
here, like, you are the best example. Like after so many years, you still like doing it great, like, you know.
Yeah, I looked at it as an opportunity. I mean, it was a complete shock, and you know, bummer. I wasn't like set up for life, so
Right.
I know I needed to do something, but I didn't want to just jump into the same old thing because it was comfortable. I wanted to, like, again, like, just this whole situation has wiped the slate clean on expectations and history. You know, it's like we're starting at a fresh new place, and everyone's on the same ground. No one knows what's next because it's this, we've never been through this before, and business is transforming. So it's like a perfect time to, like, what the fuck, you know, try something, you know, something that you scares you, that is calculated risk. And I don't know, I'm a big believer in the fates will take you where they want you to go. It's
That's
worked out.
great, man. Last question, man. We're almost there. For all our guests, we have the same. The seventh question is the same for all our guests. It's like, if you were to name a wind that blow your sails, what would that be? What would the name be?
Expression.
I love that. Can you tell me why expression?
That's kind of why I'm in this. I just like to, if have an idea, I like to share what's kind of inside. And that's where the joy comes from, is just making something and having other people react to it. So that's what kind of keeps me up, you know, keeps me going, is I have this thought, and wouldn't it be cool to see that in the real world and see how people react to it? And, you know, it's the joy of making.
That's
And
awesome, man.
I think if you get into it for that reason, you never lose that, no matter what the scale or the size of the piece you're making, it will be equally rewarding.
Man, like, you know, like, I'm so glad to cross your ocean, and I bring home like three things, which is like the joy of making, expression, and perseverance and resilience. And like, thank you so much, Greg, for being part of like Transatlantic.
Thank you. This is a nice journey. I like what you've done with the ship.
Thank you so much, man. Thank you.